Let's talk about Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay's been at United since he was 5 years of age. Before his senior debut, there was an array of positions that he was played in before finally setting on the midfield role, and that included being one of a number of 10 when he was in under 16s, alongside Marcus Rashford, and also as a striker in the under 21s for a period of time because there was no striker and Jose Mourinho wouldn't authorise the purchase of a striker for United's under 23s. And maybe quite rightly, he was like, I've got enough to worry about with the first team, so I'm not going to authorise the signing of a 21. But like, surely United could have got someone just to play up front in the 21 so everyone else's movements make sense around him. But no, we didn't do that. So Scott McTominay played up front. And who played in midfield was Matty Willock. And Matty Willock missed out on a debut. And for me, Matty Willock, at the time, was a better player. And Matty Willock, I think, has now finished, while Scott is obviously still at Manchester United. It was Jose Mourinho who gave him his first team debut in the 17-18 season. And he's made 202 appearances since then. And he's got 18 goals and 5 assists. And when he scores, they're usually a bit of a banger as well, aren't they? He's never really been a world beater. Never really came through the academy with any sort of level of hype around him. Certainly not the same as Mason, Angel Gomez, and to be honest, even Marcus Rashford, who was relatively quiet public-wise. I think internally they knew what they had, but publicly, I don't think there was too much hype around Marcus, but there was way more than there ever was about Scott. And he goes about stuff in quite a business-like sort of fashion. Definitely works hard. Seems to be one of the best 5K runners at the club. Dedicated on his fitness side of things. Physically a bit of a specimen. Gets around the pitch. Puts the graft in. And definitely gives his all for the shirt. But those are basic requirements to be a Manchester United player. Or they should be basic requirements to be a United player. But United's midfield is beginning to grow in quality. Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro, Sabitzer. All players that you put at least a level above Scott McTominay when it comes to the sort of quality. So what happens next for Scott? Where does he go from here? Does he have a future in Ten Hag's United? And if he does, what role could that potentially be? Now, when it comes to ability, as we just said then, he's quite tidy and he's quite safe and I say safe in a negative kind of sense. I actually saw some people discussing Scott McTominay's qualities, talking about the range of passing that he has, and I have to disagree. When I look at his level of passing, you might have seen him break a line occasionally, you might have seen him switch play occasionally, but the quality in the way he does it versus the way a Casemiro or an Eriksen does it is incomparable for me. There's so many times I see forward passes a better player would play on that Scott chooses to play it sideways or backwards because he's not got the ability to be able to bang that in at the right time into the feet of that striker. Now, we know he's not world class, but does lacking that ability mean that there's no place for him in the squad? Proper passion merchant. If anything, that's what he uses. He does things that you love to see. He'll happily smash somebody. But that ability on the ball, what Bruno or Eriksen have, Casemiro has, Sabitzer has, the ability to dictate the tempo of a game with possession. I just don't see it in him. Casemiro's shown us what a world-class defensive midfielder looks like, and he's shown us that that's something we've just abjectly lacked for a long, long time. And Scott's been here that entire time. And he's been one of those players over the last few years who could have taken that spot and made it his own. 202 appearances is enough for anyone to stake a claim at being a regular player. And he did at times have some really good spells, especially under Ole. And a little bit like Maguire and Wan-Bissaka under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the way United was set up to be counter-attacking, to be defensively aggressive, to be compact, to be hard-working, to be reactive, those are sort of things that suit him, but also them as well. When he's required to be someone progressing the ball up the pitch, dominating the ball with possession, he seems to drop off again a little bit. And in 2021, he got 7 goals and 2 assists, which is not a bad return for one of your deeper midfielders. And that's not amazing. Certainly, not the sort of numbers Bruno's sticking up, but, respectable returns. He seems like he's certainly a player that divides opinion. I wonder if you could stick him in West Ham's team. Does he look too bad? Not expected to be on the ball much. You're going to see a lot more of his defensive contributions. You're going to see a lot more about him in that sort of sense. Is he someone that could elevate a team like that, or a team like an Everton? In the Scotland team, he looks like one of the better players. I wonder if in a team that's not expected to dominate possession, not expecting to come up against teams that are low blocking against them very often and needing to be able to have that ball playing ability that you do at United, does he then start to look loads better because he's simplified his game a little bit? But what if we kept him as a squad player? Now, I've said this many a time, and the day that Fred and McTominay are squad players for United is the day that we will be a proper football club again. McTominay and Fred stink of squad player. They absolutely epitomise a squad player. What are both going to do? They're going to work hard. Cool. They're going to be better off the ball and on it. Cool. There's a bit more dependability in being a rugged squad player than a luxury squad player, isn't there? And I think that McTominay benefits from that a little bit. It's going to be a tough one today. Let McTominay get in the mixer. They graft. McTominay and Fred absolutely graft. They're generally always fit, not very often injured. And on their day, they're capable of producing a little bit of magic. And I like the attitude and honesty of the both of them. Scott's quite versatile. You've seen him deployed as an emergency centre-half, as well as a 6 and an 8. And much like in United's most successful times, you need players that can be multi-rolled. Players that are not expected to start every week. These are your John O'Shea's. These are your Quinton Fortunes. These are your sorts of players that fill in wherever there is a need and putting on his shift in. Could Scott be happy doing that for the squad? Going too far? Or is even being a squad player a little bit too much? When you've got the likes of Zidane knocking on the door, you've got Hannibal knocking on the door, probably going to be back after his loan this season. And when you've got the likes of Sabitzer and Casemiro and Eriksen and Bruno, and they're all fit, how far down the pecking order does Scott McTominay fall? Scott has been linked with Newcastle this week in the Telegraph. And they said Newcastle are going to make a move for Scott McTominay in the summer, which then is interesting when you consider Longstaff was a £50 million midfielder a couple of years ago, according to Newcastle at least. Now they want to replace him with someone from United. International footballer, 202 appearances in just 5 years. It's pretty regular appearances for Manchester United. Surely Scott McTominay, at least by those metrics, is a £50 million player, right? I guarantee we don't get more than 15 or 20 for him because of the way United negotiate. I think he gets more minutes for Newcastle. I think they're also a team that are going to be splashing the cash on midfielders, incoming midfielders, and he could find himself quickly first choice and then no longer first choice if he went to Newcastle, because I think they're going to be in and around Champions League very, very soon. I think Scott, if it was down to him, would probably want to stay at United and try and be the man who, when called upon, give 107%, leads by example. And he's just known as a good pro. The fitness levels that he has got is showing of an attitude of someone who's a hard worker. And I don't think there's a desire to get rid of people like that in a squad. And he's played plenty of games for United. And even if he doesn't play first choice every week, he's still played 119 times in the last 3 full seasons. That's almost being first choice. And those numbers are likely going to drop over the coming years, looking at the quality that United are assembling. But I think he'd rather be a smaller part in big Manchester United success than any part of success in Newcastle. But I'm not getting this from Scott himself, so I have no idea. I'd love your thoughts on that. And obviously you have to consider the manager. Ten Hag seemed to favour Fred whenever he brings in an auxiliary midfielder. McTominay is rarely featured, even with some of the injury crises that we've had. And there's so many question marks remain around the rest of the squad. What's going on with Donny van der Beek? What's going on with Zidane? Has Charlie Savage done enough on loan to warrant his inclusion in some games? Are we going to be signing De Jong? Probably not, right? Or Mount? You know, is Sabitzer going to get a long-term deal? Are we keeping hold of Christian Eriksen long-term? How fit do we think Casemiro could be, and for how long? In terms of ability, yeah, I'm pretty sure you could replace what Scott McTominay's got from within the squad without too much qualm. But in terms of attitude and dependability in an emergency, that's what your squad's there for. Could Scott McTominay be a long-term squad option at United? Or would you like to see him moved on altogether? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.